The Denver Broncos honored Demaryius Thomas at Empire Field at Mile High with a strong performance by Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, and the rushing attack as the Denver Broncos defeat the Detroit Lions. We talk about how the Broncos honored DT throughout the entire game. We talk about the Broncos defense and why the Broncos rushing attack is the way. The rest of the way, you get that and much more in today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos Country? Welcome back into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos. It's Victory Monday here after the Denver Broncos come away with a big-time victory against the Detroit Lions on a day where Demaryius Thomas was honored. From the South Stands to the end zone, I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside by my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. Both of us cover the Broncos for the Locked On Network and 9 News. Make sure you follow and subscribe, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. Subscribe here on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making Locked on Broncos your first listen of the day. Sayre, great to see you, my friend, here for a Victory Monday episode, Locked on Broncos, not to mention just the overall emotion of the last week and a half. We all found out Demaryius Thomas tragically passed away on Thursday. We didn't get a chance to do a show because Friday's show was already done. But, man, I tell you what, the Broncos honoring him in a big way with a victory against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. How you doing, my man?
Doing great, Cody. I felt like right when we heard the news, obviously after the shock had set in and, all that. I mean, it's just a crazy, crazy 24 hours and still is just like, it's a weird thing to process. But I mean, man, of all the things the Broncos could do to honor him, I think that there are so many cool ideas, so many great ideas. We'll talk about that. But winning is the number one. I mean, honoring DT by doing a lot of what he did for the team. Winning a football game, that was big time, and I love that stuff, man. It's so cool to see the way that they paid tribute, and man, the Broncos played well in this game on offense, which is awesome to see. And it doesn't get much better than that on a Sunday when you're able to kind of just like sit back and relax watching a game, knowing kind of knowing the outcome before the game even starts. I mean, I hate to put it like that because it sounds so arrogant, but I mean that's just kind of the vibe the game gave off.
Well, the Detroit Lions came into this matchup really banged up, and a lot of players on the COVID list, out with the flu, and they were just decimated by injuries. And I understand that the second quarter for the Broncos, Sayre, it was rough. We'll be very open and honest about that. But you know what? The Broncos, you mentioned, they got off to a hot start. You know how they did it? The run game, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get into why the Denver Broncos rushing attack is the team's best way through the remainder of the season in order for them to potentially achieve and secure a wild card playoff berth, which, look, playoffs, it's coming up, ladies and gentlemen, so everything that the Broncos do from here on out matters. The run game is going to be critical. Now, the Broncos, as we mentioned, got off to a hot start, 14-0 after a Javonte Williams opening touchdown. Then Melvin Gordon gets a touchdown. But let's talk about this. 81 yards of rushing in the first quarter alone for the Broncos. Sayre, I mean, what more could you ask for this football team? That was a tremendous start for them to be able to get the run game going. The offensive line was blocking well. Melvin Gordon was hitting inside the A-gap, or like Cushenberry was, Quinn Miners. I'm liking what I'm seeing here from the Broncos offensive line, not to mention both of these running backs.
It was a lot of fun, Cody. That kind of thing is so cool to watch just from a fan perspective, watching the game, feeling like anytime they hand the ball off that, man, my guy's going to go get 6-7 yards. And I know they didn't necessarily average 7 yards a carry, but man, it felt like at any point in time they could just break off a 7-yard run or 8-yard run or 12. I mean, they were just kind of matriculating, as Vic Fangio said one previous game, down the field in that first quarter. And that was so cool because both of the running backs were doing it. And man, did Melvin Gordon look fresh or what? I mean, he came out of the gates in this game with some serious bursts, and you love to see that, especially after he's talking about how, hey, I want to play in Denver. I know a lot of the fans don't love me, but first of all, I
Broncos
hate
Country, you
hearing
should
him say
love
that.
him. Come on, yeah,
You should. I can't stand when players, if you're making a player feel that way, man, that it's time to change the tune, especially with Melvin, because man, he's been a good Bronco, and yes, we hate the fumbles, but we love the games like today, right, where he's going for over 100 yards and a couple of TDs. So it was really, really good to see. And Pat Shurmur has done a lot of what the fans have asked. For all of Pat Shurmur's faults, right, when we started calling for run the ball, well, what is he doing? I mean, he's figured it out too. So you love to see that, especially early in the game, which goes to the point, the key to the game that you had, Cody, on our last episode previewing the game.
Well, and that was the run key, right? Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball with these guys, with both Javonte and Melvin. And we said that if the Broncos want to win, they're going to have to come out here and establish it. They did just that. They also needed to take away Teddy Bridgewater's ability to win the game. Like, you don't want to put the need to win in his hands, and they did that. However, Pat Shurmur, after that first quarter, he kind of went back to, okay, hey, let's throw the ball a little bit. The Broncos, like we mentioned, had 81 yards rushing in the first quarter. In the second quarter, they only had 6 yards rushing the football. That is not good. And that's where the Broncos with the 14-0 lead, Sayre. You know what I'm doing? I don't care about stats. You run the ball. You control the time of possession, because the Broncos were running at will against the Detroit Lions. And even though that Detroit knew, hey, Denver's going to run the ball, you know what? The blocking effort, 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets were setting things up for both guys, both Javonte and Melvin. So, I mean, you got to keep going with what's working. I understand the passing game needs to be better, but guess what? You've got the lead. There's no need in this game to go out there and try to just air it out when then simply that's not your strength. Your strength was working there. I do like that you did bring up what Melvin Gordon had said earlier on this week, because I think it's spot on. I mean, for him, he wants to be back in Denver. And he said a lot of it, a big reason why he wants to be back is because he believes in the potential and the promise of the offensive line. And they come out here and they help them rush very effectively overall here. But I want to talk about this too. Okay, the Broncos in this game between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, both of them, they each had 2 touchdowns. Javonte had a receiving one and a rushing one. Melvin had 2 rushing touchdowns. This is the way. And that's literally going to be the hashtag the rest of the season. I'm going to say it here on the show. This is the way. Utilize your 2 workhorses. But Melvin Gordon, Sayre, he needs to be back in Denver next season. And everyone's talking about, well, they don't want to pay him this. Here's the deal. It's not our money. Like, come on, ladies and gentlemen, the Broncos are very well off in terms of salary cap.
Boy.
If they want to pay Melvin Gordon to stay, you need, in my opinion, and I think we've seen it, for sustainability, you need 2 really good running backs. In the Broncos, they probably have one of the best 1-2 punch dynamic duos in the NFL, alongside with Chubb and Kareem Hunt in Cleveland. That's it. How many teams are out there? Like, look at the Los Angeles Chargers. They would love to have a 1-2 punch that the way that the Broncos do right now. They put that workload on, Austin Eckler. We see Tennessee put the workload on Derrick Henry. You know what that led to? Injuries. I'm telling you, pay Melvin Gordon. And I don't think it's going to have to be a big-time contract either. Look, if he wants to stay in Denver, you don't have to go out and break the bank. But then again, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to tell yourself this. If you're like, I don't want to pay Melvin Gordon, tell yourself this. It's not my money. Plain and simple. It's easy to move on from that standpoint. But Sayre, no, I agree with you there, my friend. But I think that for the Broncos, for Pat Shurmur, he opened up in that second half. He adjusted because that second quarter was abysmal. The Broncos defense was struggling. The play calling in the second quarter, it was rough. Detroit crept back into it, but then they were able to get things going in the second half, keep running the ball effectively. I love that. And a good thing here, the Broncos, we talked about the red zone, right? That was another key to the game. The Broncos were 5 for 5 in the red zone, 4 of them rushing touchdowns, and then 1 Howard Okuwebunam receiving touchdown. And I mean, what more could you ask for? So the Broncos offense, they're rolling. I do have a gripe I want to say a little bit later on the show about Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos offense. I'll get to that a little bit later on. But Sayre, before we get into that, we got to talk with Broncos Country about the sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos post-game report, Victory Monday, ladies and gentlemen. That's our good friends over there at DirectTV Stream. Now, does this sound familiar for you? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live. You have another one that lets you stream your favorite shows, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your mother-in-law's best friends log in for her TV services for your favorite TV and movies. Well, let me tell you about a way that you don't have to deal with that anymore. You can get all the entertainment in one place, and that is DirectTV Stream, and it's a great way to finally get your TV together. And it brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and TV shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no more need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, guess what? There is no annual contract, ladies and gentlemen. So get rid of the clutter, get rid of the confusion, and get your TV together with DirectTV Stream today. You can go to directtv.com for details. Compatible device is required, and content, it varies by package. All right, Sayre, as we jump into the second half action on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos Victory Monday. The Broncos dominate the Detroit Lions at home to get their 7th win of the season. If you're listening to this podcast, just want to say thank you so much, Broncos Country, for making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day. And if you haven't done so already, you need to do so now. When you wake up in the morning, you go to the gym, you're on your way to work, turn on Lockdown Broncos. If you want to hear about the best Broncos news, coverage, and content from an objective point of view, we look at everything without the doom and gloom, the overreaction, or the hot takes. We keep it here. Lockdown Broncos. Thank you so much, Broncos Country. But Sayre, let's open things up here. We talked about the offense in the previous segment here. Now we got to talk about the Broncos defense. And look, we'll go back to that second quarter. The Broncos in this game against the Detroit Lions offense that were down their 2 top running backs in this game. They were down some guys on the offensive line. They were down with TJ Hawkinson, who did not play in this game. the defense kind of let the Lions have a little bit of confidence in that second quarter, and Denver simply couldn't stop the run. They had a very promising opening drive, 3-and-out quick. The Broncos get the ball, they go down, they score, and then all of a sudden it was like Detroit could just do anything that they wanted in the running game there. And Reynolds at the tailback position, I thought, did a tremendous job for the Lions. He was a practice squad guy that had to get called up due to COVID. The Broncos surrendered 118 on the ground. Is this something that concerns you, especially with a matchup looming against the Cincinnati Bengals that have Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine?
It's definitely a little bit of a concern, right? I mean, we talked last week after the loss against the Chiefs, like, well, you didn't have Mike Purcell. So obviously the Chiefs, found a way to run the ball effectively, but he was back for this game and it still looked that way. And we talked about this earlier in the season against Cleveland when Dearness Johnson, of all people, was running all over the Broncos defense.
Where's he at now? We don't even hear his name called.
What's going on there? Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where, like, there's some weeks, Cody, where I feel like the Broncos are just dominant against the run. And then there's other weeks like this week or the Dearness Johnson week or last week against Kansas. I know Kansas City didn't run for a ton of yardage, but they kind of seemed to be able to get what they wanted.
They just smacked the Raiders too. Oh, my.
And they did smack the Raiders. Wow. I mean, big yikes on that one for Vegas. But it does feel like the Broncos run defense, has a little bit of a leak or something like that. And some weeks they're able to patch it up. They get that flex seal, going. And then other weeks it's like somebody comes and rips the flex seal off. And you're like, where'd the flex seal go? We put that on there last week. But they need to figure that out. I don't know what the case may be there, if they need to do more like run blitzes or if they – I don't know if the linebackers are kind of just struggling in that area. That seemed to be the primary issue when we were playing against Cleveland and then also last week against Kansas City. So the common denominator in these three games where that stand out as poor run defense performances kind of seem to be where the Broncos linebackers aren't necessarily making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, and I like that too. Let's keep that in mind. That's going to be one of the themes for this week. Who's going to be the flex seal guy for the Broncos defense this upcoming week? So, Sayre, I'm going to give that to you, obviously, later on in the week since you came up with it. Hold on to that in Broncos country. Hold us accountable. If we forget, let us know. But that's a fantastic. I love that analogy there, which you're right. And, Kenny Young exits this game. He's in concussion protocol, so that puts his status against the Cincinnati Bengals in question, which, look, Sayre, you and I have talked about it. When there's a missing link, whether it be Kenny Young or Baron Browning, inside linebacker for the Broncos, they struggle against the run. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully Kenny Young clears it. Hopefully he's okay. That's going to be huge. If not, you're going to see a lot of Jonas Griffith, who was obviously an addition that George Payton went out and got during the preseason time or even after cuts where the Broncos needed some help. But maybe you get Micah Kaiser caught back up because he was activated off of IR, so that's obviously a good sign for the Broncos there. But, man, you just can't afford to lose another key inside linebacker, and more specifically Kenny Young. Look, who had struggled in this game, and hats off to the Detroit Lions offensive line. That's been their strength, and they were pounding the rock, and they were being physical with the Broncos defensive line. And I don't know if you can really argue too much about that. That's been their strength all season long. So I wasn't really surprised there. I just, the Broncos giving up too many yards on the ground, that is a concern here. But let's talk about the Broncos defense forcing turnovers. Getting after, creating those spaces against Jared Goff. This has been a Detroit Lions team that they've actually protected the football in terms of interceptions this season. I believe that coming into this game, Goff had only thrown 9 interceptions on the season. The Lions only had 9 interceptions as a team offensively the entire way. So Justin Simmons made a fantastic play on an out route late in that game. I mean, great throw by Goff, great route by the tight end, but just reading the number 2 guy, outstretching, catching it, and obviously going and honoring DT. We'll talk about how the Broncos honor DT to kind of close out today's show. But I mean, obviously we got to focus on a lot of things. We're going to save the best for last, obviously, for Demaryius Thomas here. That was great. Shelby Harris opening up that third quarter, Sayre, coming out, punching the ball out of the running back's hands. The Broncos recover it. Same thing. Going over to DT's logo, Jonathan Cooper with the scoop, the recovery there, setting it down. I mean, the defense stepped up when they needed to in this game here. And so I have no complaints about that, except the fact that, look, you're going to have to find a way to stop the run next week. Let's talk about Broncos breakout player of the game here on the defense side of the ball. Sayre, who was it?
Dre'Mont Jones. Maybe the Broncos need to play the Lions every week so that Dre'Mont Jones can get Aaron Donald type of recognition. Because when these two teams played in 2019, Dre'Mont Jones was AFC Defensive Player of the Week. For those who remember that game, where the color rush uniforms and Dre'Mont had the interception. It was a good time. But man, that sequence of plays, he's had a couple of those in his Broncos career. Where a sack right away, and then the tackle for loss that he had. A tackle for loss, Cody, doesn't even do that play justice. He basically received the handoff from the quarterback with the running. He was right there. He could have almost just taken the ball out of Jared Goff's hands. He was back there so quick. And then obviously he's got some serious hops. He didn't even bat the ball with his hand. He got it right in the face, but he jumped it was crazy. It was a fun sequence to watch. You just see 93 all over every single play. And man, he's a young star that I think a lot of people maybe forget about, just because the Broncos defense, everybody just kind of associates, other than Pat Surtain, like the defense just gets universal credit most of the time. But Dre'Mont Jones is pretty consistently active in the backfield, making plays, getting pressures, getting hits. And so it was a great game for him overall, not even just that sequence of plays. He had a really, really good game. So fun to see him play well, man. I mean, he came away with a bit of a foot injury that sounds like they're going to kind of monitor overnight. Hopefully nothing serious. Fangio said he didn't think it was anything serious, but you just never can tell with foot injuries, I suppose, overnight. So you got to just pray for the best there and pray that the Broncos can get him back, because they'll need him going forward.
Yeah, and Vic had said early on this week in a media press conference with us that Dre'Mont has been frustrated this season because his pressure, his looks, he's getting there, but it's not showing up in terms of sacks. So there's some frustration that comes with that. And Vic said, hey, it's only a matter of time before he gets there. I've told him to keep with it. Today, he kept with it. He absolutely dominated the Detroit Lions on the interior, and obviously his presence was felt. Like you mentioned, that running back, quarterback kind of handoff. I mean, I would have counted that personally as a running back tackle and a quarterback sack. I mean, the 2-in-1 there, that was a freak play there by Dre'Mont Jones. So obviously the Broncos need to keep building on that, and hopefully his foot injury isn't nothing serious. We'll hear a little bit more from Vic Fangio Monday, and you're going to hear from that on Tuesday's episode, Locked On Broncos. But ladies and gentlemen, coming up here in just a moment, it's the big time. It's what you've been waiting for. It's how the Denver Broncos honored Demaryius Thomas in the best fashion on Sunday against the Detroit Lions. We talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos Post-Game Report. It's our good friends over there at Built Bar. Ladies and gentlemen, the holiday season is literally right around the corner. Christmas is just about a week and a half, 2 weeks away, and Built Bar is something that you need to invest in for you and your loved ones during this holiday season, because guess what? It's the best tasting protein bar that is out there on the market, and it's also the healthiest one. You get the best combination of both tasty and healthy, ladies and gentlemen. That is tremendous value right there, and they have so many flavors, ranging from peanut butter brownie, white chocolate cheesecake with the puffs, which are a marshmallowy chocolate blend. Fantastic. That's Sayre and I's favorite type of Built Bar to have, and you can check out the wide variety of flavors that they have there, plus the occasional limited time flavor. And as we mentioned, it gives you that extra fuel. 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a fantastic, healthy protein bar. Nothing else compares out there on the market today. And tell Santa, if you're friends with him, to throw a couple of boxes of Built Bar in you or your stockings this holiday season, and visit Built.com today. Go to checkout, use promo code LOCK15. You know what that's going to do, Broncos Country? That's going to give you 15% off your next order at Built.com. Once again, promo code LOCK15 gets you 15% off at Built.com. And our good friends over there, BetOnline.ag. BetOnline has you covered all season long and more, with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues its march towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus today. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for the 2021 season at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Sayre, best for last here, fourth quarter of Lockdown Broncos, and really kind of focusing on everything, because Thursday, obviously, we received the tragic news. I think the whole community of Denver, Broncos Country, anybody that knew Demaryius Thomas, I think we're all shaken up by it. And this is our first time on the show being able to talk about it. And I can tell you this, Sayre, watching that, just everything from Thursday all the way to today, very emotional. Pre-game, emotional. Seeing that the Broncos, they put the memoir of him outside the stadium where fans could go and leave flowers, candles, take pictures, and obviously just seeing everybody that was impacted by this. Man, I tell you what, like, I don't want to get emotional here on TV, but I was choked up a little bit watching the pregame tribute, seeing just how it impacted the players, Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, the 10 players on the roster that really knew DT, and obviously the coaches that knew him, Curtis Modkins, who recruited him out of Georgia Tech, Coach Azani, who coached him up for a season. it was a brutal blow, man. But this was all about a day where the Broncos honored and celebrated Demaryius Thomas. And so hats off to the Detroit Lions for being very first class for this. But the Broncos opened up the game with 10 men in the huddle, leaving out the X receiver, which DT had played. Cortland Sutton was on the sideline. They let the clock go down, delay of game. Detroit declined it. Cortland came out, honored, obviously, DT, and just, man, I tell you what, just that right there, I was like, man, I'm trying not to cry. I'm a softie, dude. I'm an emotional guy. I cry at these little heartfelt things. But, man, as a Broncos fan, Sayre, somebody who's been a fan, who's been covering this team, what was this day like for you, just seeing how the team honored DT?
Man, it's super like surreal still almost, right? It's like it's almost like, man, shouldn't DT be getting like his orange jacket at halftime or something? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough because like those are the things that we all dreamed of seeing. Like we all dreamed of getting to see DT getting his orange jacket and getting his name up in the in the stadium and getting his rafter hung up in the. I mean, he's the best wide receiver in team history. All due respect to Rod Smith. I grew up watching Rod and
Yeah.
love watching him play. One
Rod
of the
Smith would even
toughest
say
guys.
the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, and Rod Smith epitomized what it means to be a Bronco. So what does that say about Demaryius Thomas, right? And it's just it's hard to it's hard to even still accept. I'm sure a lot of people
Yeah.
in Broncos country can agree, but it's like tough to just like come to grips with the fact like Demaryius Thomas we'll never see those things. We won't get to see what I believe a Hall of Fame enshrinement. We won't get to see any of that stuff, and it's just like it's so hard. But I mean, yeah, it's just a regular season game against the Lions, but the tributes that were paid throughout this game, the defense going over to the 88 patch on the sideline and slamming the ball down in the middle of it and getting some cool photos over there. And man, I think some of the coolest tributes are the ones that you like really don't plan, like the classy tributes that the Broncos had. Like hats off to Patrick Smythe, he's the best in the game, man, at thinking through stuff like this
Yeah.
and being thoughtful about stuff. He's so good at that. And I remember reading in Tim Tebow's book that he was the one who came up to Tebow after the Steelers game that Demaryius caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime. And he's telling Tebow all these crazy stats about you had 316 yards passing, and this was 316. Tebow had the John 316 eye block in that one game, and that's kind of been like his thing, And so this game, you cap off with an 88-yard touchdown drive. I mean, that kind of stuff is you can't write it. And it's not like the Broncos could say, hey, why don't you put us on the 12? It's like that's where Justin Simmons caught the interception. And like you think about that, and you think about that whole sequence of things, like the way that Simmons, who was one of the 10 players who got to play with Demaryius, he lays out to catch that pass. And I can just imagine Demaryius getting to see any of that and that whole sequence and just the way that he was honored. Like this is the way that you honor an all-time great Denver Bronco. And I can't wait to see the ways that they're going to continue to do that into the future. But man, as terrible as it is to no longer have Demaryius Thomas among us, gone way too soon at the age of 33, the way the Broncos went about honoring him and playing to honor him, and the players react, like you said, all of it came together, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful day in Broncos country this day for sure.
It really was too, and they had even said too, in Demaryius' first day as a Denver Bronco, it snowed, and they said on the last day, his final day of life, it snowed, and just things like that, man. I go back and I just remember seeing the tweets. Somebody had sent me a message saying, "Hey, is this true?" And I was like, I have no idea, So obviously, everyone's waiting for confirmation, but just like the thought of that whole thing of hearing that rumor, you're just like, please don't be true. Like it just makes you sick to your stomach. And just what a fantastic human being that DT was, right? And I think that's something that Peyton Manning had talked about is, he's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. If Peyton says that, look, I definitely believe that. I think what Demaryius Thomas is able to do for the Broncos organization was huge. But I think the bigger thing here at the end of the day here, Sayre, who Demaryius Thomas was as a human being, what he did for the Denver Metro Boys and Girls Club, his involvement there, his involvement just in multiple charities and his own foundation, what he had created. I just tell you what, very special. And Peyton Manning had said he treated my kids like his own. What a way. I mean, and I hope at the end of the day, Sayre, we're going to eventually see Demaryius Thomas's name in the Ring of Fame there at Empower Field a Mile High. They're going to have the honorary jacket for him. I would love to see somehow too, and through the rest of the season, I'd like to see the sticker 88 there. I'd say the Broncos have 2 home games left. I would love to see 88 still there through the rest of the season. And more importantly, maybe, just maybe here in the near future, you can retire as an organization. The Broncos should retire 88, in my opinion, sir. I might be a little biased on that, but look, he's second on the Broncos franchise list in a lot of major categories as a receiver. Just his impact. Look, why not? Why not retire 88? He deserved it. And look, big loss. I mean, you can't put it into words just how big of a loss Demaryius Thomas is to this world. The world lost a great football player, but the world lost an even better human being. And with that, Broncos country, we will end today's show of Lockdown Broncos paying tribute to Demaryius Thomas, number 88, who sadly passed away way too soon at the age of 33. He will be forever loved and missed by Broncos country. And what a day to celebrate him by going out against the Detroit Lions, getting a win, and honoring him with their play. I mean, that you couldn't have written it even better. And Sayre, like you mentioned, 88-yard drive to cap things off with an Albert Okwuegbunam touchdown. That was storybook right there. Can't write it, can't make it up. It's fantastic. So Broncos country here on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos here at the end. If you're listening on the podcast, please tweet Sayre, myself, at Cody Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger, at Lockdown Broncos with your favorite Demaryius Thomas memory that you have. Or if you're here in the comment section watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed here, Lockdown Broncos, and write in the comment section of this video here your favorite DT memory and your thought for how the Broncos honored him in this game against the Detroit Lions. But that'll do it for today's episode, Lockdown Broncos, here and available everywhere on your favorite podcasting providers, free wherever you can get us, not to mention here on YouTube. Both Sayre and myself will be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Lockdown Broncos, a mailbag, and we're going to talk about the Broncos offense led by Teddy Bridgewater a little bit more. We'll save that for tomorrow's episode of the show. Broncos country, mile high salute here for Demaryius Thomas. We will love and we'll miss him forever in Broncos country, and we'll always have that peace there. With that said, we're signing off. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.